Hello everybody, I'm Clara Jansen and I'm joined here today by special guest Earnell Lucas. He recently won the Democratic primary in the race to be the next sheriff of Milwaukee County. He also graduated from Marquette University back in 2000. Hi, how are you doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm pleasure to be here. Thank you so much, Clara.
Is it nice to be back on campus?
It is. As I drove around the campus, there's a lot of construction obviously going on, but always having grown up in the backdrop of Marquette University as a young child, I've always been excited by the progress and the growth here. So it's really good to be back. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you graduated in 2000, what was your degree in?
My degree was in organization and leadership, and my minor was in criminology and law studies. I was a returning student who returned to the College of Professional Studies, and my goal was just to finish that which I set out to do as a young man before I started a career in law enforcement. And so I set out in 1994 to accomplish which I did in 2000.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand you had a 25-year career with the Milwaukee Police Department?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, 25 years. I started as a 18-year-old right out of high school, Rufus King High School here in Milwaukee, and started as what they call a police aide, which the individual does clerical work, gets to know the inner workings of the organization, and so that when you become 21 and a police officer, you go through the academy, learn all the rules and procedures of being a police officer, and then after 23 weeks of the academy, you're placed out in the field.
Okay.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So then you worked your way up through the ranks.
Mm-hmm.
I understand it. Eventually, when you ended your career there, being a decorated captain, and you served as a spokesperson, I understand it?
I did. In 1992, I took a promotional exam and became a sergeant in January. For 6 months, I spent on the near South Side, District Number 2. When on a fall afternoon, and I received a phone call from then Police Chief Philip Areola, inviting me up to his office. Now, anytime you're at home and on a Saturday you get a call from the boss of the company, you think, oh my goodness, what have I done wrong? and so my daughter says, Dad, I said, yeah. She said, phone. I said, who is it? She said, that's the chief. I said, oh my God, what did I do wrong? But he called and said, Earnell, a lot of your commanders have spoken highly of you and someone that would do well in my administration. I want to bring you up to the office. It was in the aftermath of the Dahmer atrocities in the summer of 1992, in which the two officers who were dismissed had their trial beginning in the fall, and we needed a public information officer to cover the night shift because the hearings were being held in the police administration building in the evening in the old Fire and Police Commission room. And so that was my initial responsibility when I went up to the chief's office. Spent the better part, well, the trial went on for a month, let me say that, and as we know, the officers did regain their jobs. But I was asked to stay on in the office and spent the remaining 4.5 years term of that police chief, and then the next police chief came in, and I spent another 2.5 years up there in his office as well. So 7 years of day-to-day being the spokesperson for the Milwaukee Police Department, and quite a feat, quite an accomplishment.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So then I understand you took a break from being with MPD to go work for Major League Baseball?
In fact, I concluded my career as the commanding officer of the district that encompasses Marquette University when I did get promoted in 1999 and was attending the university at the time. I was assigned to the 3rd district on the west side here, and that encompasses Marquette, Miller Brewery, Miller Park, Harley Davidson, other institutions here in Milwaukee. But I had the privilege of developing a relationship with the administration here at Marquette and really enjoyed that, and was really special And I had an opportunity come along while I was still employed by the police department to have a relationship with Major League Baseball. Every Major League team has a individual appointed by Major League Baseball to be a liaison with the club in their respective cities. So obviously in my case here in Milwaukee, and I began that in 1999 as well. Then following the attacks of 9/11, Major League Baseball did an analysis of its operations, and they created a position that became the first supervisor of security for then baseball commissioner Bud Selig, who we all know, Milwaukee's own. For the 22 years that he ran Major League Baseball, he ran it from his office in the 30th floor of the U.S. Bank building. And after a nationwide recruitment, I was selected and chosen to become the first supervisor of security for Major League Baseball. So I retired at the end of, in 2002, in January of 2002, and joined baseball right away.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then you stayed with Major League Baseball for quite some time. What drew you back to police work and wanting to run for sheriff?
Well, I'm still currently employed by Major League Baseball. They've been gracious enough to allow me to pursue this opportunity here back at home. But most importantly, I've had the privilege of watching young men play a game and travel all over the country and all over the world, as baseball is certainly an international sport. And as I traveled around the country and around the world, you run into people that say, "Hey, Earnell, this seems to be a lot of things going back on in your hometown, particularly with a particular sheriff that likes to be outspoken and everything." So that, as well as I saw that the dialogue here was just really getting off track, where you saw public officials banging public officials in public. They were setting an image that I think for young people growing up in this community, not a very positive one. And I felt, Earnell, you've had a wonderful life. You had a wonderful career both in law enforcement and now in baseball. And what better way to finish a career, if you will, than to go back and maybe add to the dialogue and the discourse and change it in such a way that it could create a positive image for young people that might want to pursue the profession of law enforcement. So that's what kind of drew me back.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you were campaigning, did you run a lot on the platform of putting things back in the direction that you wanted them to, since the clerk's tenure?
Mm-hmm. Well, my platform was restoring honor and integrity back to the office of the Milwaukee County Sheriff. That certainly is the goal that I set out to do, and that was the type of campaign that we ran. I think we ran a very dignified campaign. We stayed focused on the issues. We never got into personal differences between myself and my opponents. But most importantly, we wanted to restore the honor and trust back to the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office. We wanted to certainly address some of the issues that has led us to where we are right now with the jail and the parks not being safe and secure. And then we felt that the citizens of Milwaukee County deserved a better level of service than they had been receiving. And I felt that, again, my blend of experience both in law enforcement as well as in public safety at Major League Baseball was the right fit at this time in Milwaukee County.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, congratulations on winning the primary. What was your reaction that night?
I was it was a very sweet victory. As we know, I announced in March of 2017, at the time when the former sheriff was still in office. So there was the lure of two heavyweights, if you will, engaging in the campaign. But as we know, the former sheriff left in September of 17, and an acting sheriff took the position. And it changed the race to some degree, but it still didn't change my goal or my intention and what I wanted to do for this community. But as we got into the race here in 2018, there was the introduction of special interests and money from outside for my opponent, but it did not change or alter the course of the campaign that we wanted to run. We thought that reaching the masses through mailings, through digital, through radio, and certainly through social media was going to be the best strategy for us, not thinking that that television, with all of the other races that were going on here in Wisconsin at the time, for Senate, for governor, for Congress, we felt if we just run our campaign that we'd be successful. And quite frankly, we were relieved, very satisfied when we won. We beat our opponent by 22 points. And as we walked into the Rave Eagles Club on election night, I was told to go to a green room, but as I was making my way to the green room, I was told, no, just go on upstairs and greet well-wishers. And I said, well, it's only 8:15 and the polls just closed. Well, 70% of the polls were in, you're up by 20 points, and it's not going to change. And, I said, no, let's just be a little bit patient. And by 8:30, several of the media outlets here had already called the race. The paper here had called the race. And now I said, well, then it's just a matter of waiting for my opponent to call and concede. And there were two other opponents in the race. The one that trailed the furthest behind actually called first and made a very gracious concession, and even made it over to our watch night party. So that was very rewarding. But my top opponent called just 5 minutes before the hour of 9, and I was making my way up to greet the well-wishers, and conceded at that point. And so it was very satisfying.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's exciting
Mm-hmm.
for you.
Mm-hmm.
So now coming up, there is still one more hurdle left to go before you can officially take the position of sheriff, and that would be the November midterm election.
Mm-hmm.
You're running unopposed from the Republican side, but there is one write-in candidate who said that they are planning to try to face you in that. Are you too concerned about that write-in, or how are you feeling about the midterm?
Well, I take nothing for granted, let me say that, and that we're still going to run the campaign on the issues that led us to victory in the primary. We have to remain focused to carry our message through all 19 municipalities here in Milwaukee County. And that, again, we got to present ourselves as the one who's going to best restore the honor and integrity back to the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office. So again, we're not taking anything for granted. Yes, there is an individual who I'm told is going to wage a write-in campaign. And so we've got to be prepared for that, as well as anyone else has the opportunity between now and November the 6th to step forward to wage a write-in as well. So again, I'm just staying focused on, again, communicating with voters, conveying the message of restoring honor and integrity, level of service that the people here truly deserve, and again, addressing those issues that have plagued the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office over the last several years, the jail, overtime, the budget, issues like that. And if we stay focused, we feel very confident of the results in November.
One last question for you. How did your time at Marquette and the education you received here shape what you would go on to do in your career and your leadership style?
Well, I'll tell you, as you know, again, I returned after having started Marquette in 1976. And then when the opportunity came to join the police department, I put education here at Marquette on hold to join the police department, start a family. And then there was always that burning desire in the back of my mind that I wanted to come back and finish that which I had started and set out to do. And I gotta admit, I don't know if I would want to write it the exact same way if I had to do it all over again, but I will say it was very rewarding to come back as a returning adult. And I've said before, and I'll say it again, that I actually learned more from my classmates than I did from any instructor. And then, no disrespect to all the instructors, and many are good friends right now to this day. But when you see people who, like myself, have started families, who are professionals in their own right in whatever career they were in, still having the commitment to want to go back and obtain something or attain something that they had set out as a young person to do, that just really motivates you and inspires you. So, you know, I'm proud of my Marquette degree. Now, I will say for me, it was graduating on Sunday and going back to the same job that I had on Monday. So it really didn't change in that perspective. But again, I had the satisfaction that I know that I had accomplished something that I had set out, or a goal that I had set for myself way early as a child. And I was very, very satisfied then, and I'm even more satisfied and elated now because of the association and the affiliation with an outstanding institution like Marquette University.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming in and talking with us today. It's been lovely, and we wish you luck on the midterm election.
Thank you so much, Claire. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.